My name is Peter Kovacs. I'm an assistant professor at the Agronomy and Horticulture and Plant Science department at SDSU. My main research focus is on corn and soybean crop production, and today we'll look at some of our current soybean research, what we are working in the past 2 or 3 years. As you are aware, sulfur is coming the next big nutrient what we are looking into terms of fertilizer applications both for corn and soybean, due to the cleaner fuels what we use in our cars, and also to the Clean Air Act reducing the industrial pollution. So we hear many or more and more reports of grain yield response to sulfur application. So some of the study what is being sponsored by the Nutrient Research and Educational Council, focusing on the sulfur application and whether we get grain yield response and protein response to the additional sulfur in South Dakota. If we look at the soybean, one of the main use of the soybean is meal production, and within the meal, the protein and the amino acids are also important part, and not just the grain yield. And over the past 50-60 years, breeding effort was really helpful for increasing our grain yield. However, we are seeing some decline in protein levels at the same time. So what we looked at on some of these studies is using different fertilizer sources, ammonium sulfate, which would be readily available sulfur forms, and 2 mixed of elemental sulfur and sulfate sulfur form of fertilizer, the Mez-10 and the Tiger product. What we applied at pre-plant, ranging from 0 to 30 pounds of sulfur per acre. And in 2020, we didn't see any yield response, and really just a small protein response for one of our treatment. But if you recall the 2020 year or growing season in South Dakota, the August and early September was really dry, which likely hindered both the grain yield and the protein formation. The other study what we also tried to look at, that the timing of the sulfur fertilizer, so pre-plant or about 5 or 10 pounds of sulfur application in season and early part of the season. So we are getting close to the V4 growth stages, and this would be one of those application timing what we're going to do in the next couple of days, to apply some sulfur fertilizer combination at right after flowering or as the pod setting begins. And again in 2020, likely because of the weather, we didn't see statistical differences among the treatments. Another project, collaboration among 7 other universities and funded through the United Soybean Board, we have been looking in the past 3 years of different management practices to improve the protein levels, and we had a coordinated effort throughout the universities. And one of our study was focusing on the late season application. So protein is building in the seed during that grain filling, and we target it from the R3 or beginning of pod stages of adding an additional about 20 pounds of sulfur through a wide drop application close to the soybean stems during the growing season, and see whether that would provide some yield benefit or protein level increase. And in a 2020 year, we only see a numerical increase in the grain yield when we applied the nitrogen at the R5, so at the beginning of the seed stages. And again, we'll synthesize these results and finishing up our sulfur sources and the sulfur timing studies this year. And we have a really new project starting at the background where we try to compare some of our high protein lines and see that whether they would require an additional or different type of management practices to maintain or hopefully increasing the protein levels which would meet with the processor's requirements and the standards for end users. Again, we'll keep you updated in the coming weeks and coming years on some of these projects as you come back to see some of the SDSU extension meetings or other meetings where I'm going to present about these results. If you have questions, please feel free to email me and I'll try to get back to you and give you a guidance about our research. Thank you.